getting ready to start the paint, and first thing you got to do is mix. This is a two-part. This has the paint and then the epoxy hardener, and I'll show you that here next. Alright, we're mixing the paint. When I say we, I mean my wife, because she's the one with the talent. And so we have a chart. We'll see if this will show. You have, well, of course it's blowing right on it. Basically, here's your chart, your air temperatures, your 55 to 60, 69, 70s, then your 80s, nothing above 90. Humidity, 60%, 70%, 80%. So we're having to keep our garage door closed. If you're in the southeast and it's, you know, it's June 30th today, you're going to have to keep your garage door closed or do it really early. And it's 76 in here with the garage door closed and a fan blowing in from the house. And humidity is down to 67%. So, based upon the chart, ours is roughly 30 minutes. So we mix, then we let it, you got to stir it for 3 to 5 minutes, at least 3, so it'll mix up well. And we'll have to wait for 30 minutes. That's the activation time. And based upon our temperature and humidity, we have to use it within 2.5 hours. Now you see, and again, I don't know if this is going to show focus right, but at 80s, in the 80s, temperature and humidity, you're down to an hour. So that's why we're keeping it closed, the garage door closed, and the fans blowing from inside. So check the chart. Some things to keep in mind. You've got to keep a wet edge. So anywhere where you stop painting, a section that you stop painting in, and then you're going to paint the section next to it at a future time, that edge of the previous section has to stay wet. It can't dry and then you paint over it, you'll see it. So keep a wet edge. Be sure that you know the pattern that you're going to use, because we have the garage door closed. That messes us up for just painting from the back of the garage out the front. And if you'll notice, I adjusted the garage door so it's about 2 inches up from the ground, so we can take a paintbrush and cut in right at the line and keep the garage door right there. The other thing we've got to deal with is a water heater. I'm not removing the water heater for this. And the stairs that go into the kitchen, I am not removing those. So we've come up with a pattern that we hope will work. We're going to do the back of the garage up till a couple feet maybe before the steps. Then we're going to change over here, get the water heater across, and then start working back. We're going to check the other side, make sure that it's still wet, and finally we will get to about right here, leave us just enough room in front of the steps so we can do under the steps. Then from the steps, we will do in front of the steps. Yay team, we can do this. And we will still have to work fast because it is still hot, and we got to keep that wet edge. Something else, practice throwing your flakes. You've got to throw flakes on while it's still wet. The paint's still wet. So as you go, you're going to be throwing flakes. You'll do a section, they say 4x4. Then you're going to toss flakes on it. Practice throwing them. I've got some cardboard that I'm going to use to toss the flakes up and let them hit the cardboard, and try to get a pattern. They say you can just shake them out of the container, but I'm not sure that I've seen how that works. I mean, I'll try it on the cardboard, but it doesn't really spread them as evenly as I would prefer. So keep that in mind. Practice first. We now have 30 minutes before we start. So if you get a few of the flakes off the paint, don't worry about that. That's not going to hurt it. Just keep rolling over them. Also, be sure to clean your hands. Make sure your rollers are lint-free. You know, kind of your standard painting stuff. So, yep. I'm going to go practice flakes. Throwing flakes. Yay. So I'm practicing throwing flakes, the new Olympic sport, and I've got some down. Basically, there's couple options I'm testing. You can hold it up high. The higher you hold it, the more the flakes kind of float down and spread out. All right, and it's out. Honestly, it's actually much better than I thought it would be. The other option. And this one will be trickier because what I'm doing is I'm taking flakes, put them in my hand, and I don't want to dump flakes. Some are going to fall, so you got that issue. And then what you do is you toss them, like so. And that looks, honestly, that looks pretty good too. The only issue that I have with this one is that you got to put the flakes in your hand. If you're the one painting, it's going to take a little more time, and you've got the potential of spilling flakes. But it's a little faster. And again, you toss them up. The higher you drop it from, the more distribution you're going to get. But I'm thinking about there, and this will also let you get an idea of how thick you want them. We actually got 2 of these so that we could make sure we had enough flakes, because we were worried that we wouldn't. If we only use one, fine, we can take the other one back. But be sure to practice and get what you like. So a couple things. One, you can always add flakes as you're doing this. You can add more, but you can't remove them. Depending on, you're going to have to decide how much you want, as I mentioned earlier, because my wife is concerned that this many would just, she says that you need enough to hide any like dirt, but she doesn't want it to look she doesn't like this many flakes. So we are fighting it out now, and we'll see who wins the MMA, and you'll see in the end results who won. Yeah! So it's been 30 minutes, and we're now stirring again. The activation time was the 30 minutes, and now we're stirring again to make sure everything is mixed. We had 2.5 hours time based on our temperature and humidity. It's been 30 minutes. So we now have 2 hours to finish. First thing we're going to do is take a brush and come over to the corner and start cutting in. Basically, that's a 2+ inch line with the paintbrush on the edges. And we're looking at doing like 4x4 at a time, 4 feet by 4 feet. And you can do 2x6, or however much works for you. So cut in at the corner, back corner. I've applied the paint going the other direction, and then just fill in the paint as I step in it with the hand. So if you apply it one direction, then you crisscross it from the other direction and spread it out. Now I will tell you that trying to get a gallon of this to cover, I'm really concerned about, so I'm being pretty tight, pretty cheap on the paint here, trying to get as much coverage out of this little paint as I can get. That might come back and bite me. Alright, so you apply the paint one direction and then you spread it the other direction. It's really hard to tell how much you need. I hate being at a pinch for how much paint I can use. What I'm trying to do is gauge on the by the can what percentage I can use in each section of the garage. But you know, do what you can on that. As far as the flakes, you can see the flakes on the section I've already done, and I found that throwing them in the air works best for me, and you can see the amount we're using. So I think that's a pretty good mix right here. So, you know, right here. It's really hard to tell how much you need, how much paint to do. Again, trying to be thin on the paint, so I have enough. It's proven to be a big challenge. You see how the paint is all stopping there? That's because it's been 1 hour and the paint is already done. It's already reached its point of usage. You can see what we've done, and it's just not, it's no longer usable. I'm fed up as can be. I wanted you to see right here, it will not, the roller just spreads on it. It just slides on it. It will not spread. And according to the instructions, we were supposed to have 2.5 hours at this time, at this temperature and humidity. You don't. You do not have 2 hours. You have 1 hour, and it's going to end up at the end looking like this. So it is what it is. We are finished. All right. So what I'm going to show you. Couple things. One, this was the first bottle of the flakes. One will do more than one single car garage. Okay, this is the temperature in here. It's 87 outside, but it's 78.4 inside in the garage where it's sitting. Humidity, you can see it's like 65%. Humidity. Now, what you see there was half of the gallon of paint. It's not completely dry yet, but you can see that it's not covering everything. You can see lines which, you know, are a little browner. That may have been okay. I may have been happy with that. I did that area. Then I went to that square. Then I came over here underneath the water heater and against this wall. And then I start moving out. You can see where I start moving out, dark patches. And then I did it along the back, along the garage door. And then I started coming in this way. And you can see that the paint completely failed me at that point. What started happening here is that the paint, when you first touch the roller, it actually started right here, but when you would touch the roller to the floor, almost the paint would just come right off the roller the first roll or two, and then you would be out of paint. And it just would get thicker and thicker. When I got over here, I'm like, okay, the roller isn't even, it's just sliding across the surface. It's not even rolling. So, okay, let's change out the roller. We did. And that's when we did this one. Well, initially the first few rolls, the roller rolled, but then it did the same thing. So it was not the roller, it's the paint. It was about right in that section here where we hit the 1 hour mark. And that was the 1 hour mark from when we started. And you can basically, what happened is the paint was finished. It was at its, I don't know what they call it, but the paint would no longer spread. And that's why you have less all the way up to the steps. I had a little bit, I was able to get a little thicker here, because what I did is I had enough paint where I could just put it on thick, one roll, and that was, if you went over it twice, it would actually pull up the previous paint. So that's what you get. So my suggestions on this: number one, 1 gallon for a single car garage is not enough. It's just not enough. If you want it to be thin in spots and you can kind of still see the gray floor underneath, then you might be able to get 1 gallon to cover. A darker color would probably cover better, but we got a tannish, kind of a tan color, and you can still see the gray through it. That was at a level which would have just completed the floor. That's, that was as thick as we could get. What I did is marked off on the can, okay, percentages. So started at 50, 25, basically, so I knew how much I could use on each section of the floor. And then the other thing is, so I personally, if you're going to use a color that's a lighter color, this was, you saw the garage floor. It was a gray cement with some dark spots. The tan just doesn't cover enough for 1 gallon doing a single car garage. The other thing is, you saw the humidity and the temperature. According to the instructions, it said we had 2.5 hours from the time we initially put the hardener into the paint. At 1.5 hours, it was done. I mean, you will notice, if you hit that point, you will notice, and it will just stop spreading. It'll just stop spreading, and you can change the roller or whatever, it's not going to help. So what I suggest is, if you're doing a single car garage, you get 2 gallons, and that you mix them. It says to mix, you may mix the paint together between the 2 gallons, but don't activate all of it. Make sure you've got 1 gallon and then a 2nd gallon to mix later, part way through, because it's gonna have the activation time. In this case, it was 30 minutes, and I'm wondering if that ended up being more than what it should have been as well, because clearly the paint was done at 1.5 hours, not 2.5 hours. So I would start with your 1 gallon, maybe mix the 2 paint colors in the cans as much as you can there, but then activate one, start when you are about halfway done with that one, depending on how long it says based upon your temperature and humidity. Then go ahead and mix the second one, finish up your first one. Hopefully the time you finish that first one, your next can will be ready to go, and you can continue with it. And you got to work fast. You got to work fast. This was, we were working pretty quick. You wouldn't think it would take that long, but it does take a while. And you got to work fast. So bear that in mind. It is what it is. I'm hoping, we'll see what it looks like when it's dry. But there's ours. We were going to paint the cinder blocks with just the regular paint. Regular paint that would cover cinder block and then the wood as well, but at a later date. Now we'll just have to decide what we're going to do with the floor. Leave it like it is, or, you know, go over it again. I don't know. We got the flakes down. That's what kind of sucks. I think we'd have to rough it up, pull out a lot of the flakes, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, there you go. Hopefully it was helpful for you. You know, I wish I had seen it before I did mine, and I would have made sure I was prepared with enough product and time-wise on the front end. It may or may not be better. That's better than what it was when I started. That's just nasty. So, you know, your also your cut-in lines, you got to keep those wet, and that was more of a challenge than you might think once you get going. Have a good pattern. So anyway, all right. Hopefully it was helpful, and if so, please like, subscribe, comment. If you've done this and had tips or suggestions or whatever, feel free to post them. I'm sure everybody would appreciate it. And so far, you know, I had some oil stains and stuff that I had worked on, and so far those seem to have been cleared up using the products that I talked about earlier in the video. So far that's good. Anyway, take care.